Okay, this is the June 16th meeting, and it's the second reading of the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 78 for the floods. And this is where Hurley steps in and starts calling it the Morrison Brook watershed. And I've clearly identified that this is a man-made ditch on my private property. We are not part of Morrison Brook, which is up by Congress Street and up by Birch Street, but they just didn't want to build sewers, so they meandered it through some woods and down other private properties and down into Seaview Terrace because they don't have infrastructure on this side of town, which is a secret, part of the comprehensive plan. You know, there's a reason why they're doing this, and as you'll hear at the end, they'll mention about taking the money out of the comprehensive plan to cover this audit to see if they can get us out of the these new homes in Seaview Terrace, out of the flood zone. Not new homes, new flood zone A properties with the new firm maps. City Planner Wayne Marshall tells them that these new firm maps are almost exact. They've told him that they're as close as to 1/10 of a foot. He mentions a property on Seaview Terrace that they were able to confirm that it was within 1/10 of a foot exact. So the fact that Hurley still is going ahead to try and get these homes reevaluated for $2,500, that's only the original legwork. Then they can go up to $10,000 on taxpayer dollars. It's not because of residents. It's for the taking. Okay, here we go.
Well,
oh yeah, and watch them all smirk when he starts calling it the Morrison Brook. They all think it's funny. Oh, look, Hurley's like telling a lie again. This is my city council rep over here, Mary Mortier. She's a real estate agent, corrupt as hell. She's in on it too. She thinks it's funny.
Thanks. One is, I don't know, I'm ready to make a motion to, accept this as the first reading. Would this be the first?
This is the second reading, putting it into adoption.
But secondly, you call it the Seaview Terrace area. I prefer to call it the Morrison Brook watershed. I do support doing that initial research. And I don't know if we could, make it in the form. Could we discuss that first?
I would just ask that if you're going to do such, as you would address such as separate questions,
right,
and have the ordinance viewed as one issue. And if you choose to look at the question of Morrison's Brook, then you consider that as an entirely separate action.
So I'll make a motion to accept this as the second reading.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? John?
Yeah, I was wondering if...
Any discussion? John?
Yeah, I was wondering if in the last 2 weeks...
Any discussion? John?
Yeah, I was wondering if in the last 2 weeks, or has it been 4 since we last revisited this, 4 weeks, whether you have received communications that we may not have seen from concerned citizens?
None. We would always bring, if we had received anything, anytime we put out an ordinance proposal, we always create an opportunity for written comment as well as email comment. We've had neither on this proposal. Had we received any, we would automatically bring them forward to you. But thanks for asking.
That's great. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Take it to a vote. All in favor? Thank you, Wayne.
So can we right now make a motion on using Ransom Consulting to do a review of the Morrison Brook watershed?
I'll note that the quote that I obtained from Ransom Consulting to do the work was limited mostly to the Seaview Terrace area of the watershed and not the entire watershed. If you look at that...
Look at Mary.
So there's a big bulge on that map.
That brook watershed is the area starting at the coast in City Park, going up in by Seaview Terrace by Route 1, going over White Street, continuing over Congress Street, and almost getting as far as Miller Street along the backside of what would be where the Birch's subdivision is, Birch Street.
They get swamped.
It's one of two significant watersheds inside the bypass.
So what I specifically want them to review is the insurance impact. So a lot of that goes through either, woods or doesn't impact anybody. Can we tailor it to that?
Yeah, what they were going to be doing is an initial analysis of the research done by FEMA and the accuracy of their maps, and to determine if there would be any cause for which then to pursue, I hate to cross out terms, what's known as a LOMAR, or letter of map revision, which is a process that any municipality can pursue, or any individual can pursue, or any property owner for any area post the adoption of the maps. We've had one LOMAR in Belfast, which is for the Hannaford site, which was done on the existing maps. We've had quite a few LOMAs, letter of map adjustments, which are done usually for individual properties, usually based upon where you get what's called an elevation certificate to determine where the flood zone is on your particular lot, and oftentimes people got those because of the inaccuracies of the flood maps. I think a lot of the inaccuracies will disappear, but what still is the question is whether or not the research which FEMA did, and the research really dates back to 1990, because there was no new research done under these maps. What they mostly did is they used new elevation data to determine where the flood zone better lie. And in the Seaview Terrace area today, FEMA can tell us within 1/10 of a foot where they believe the flood zone lies, even though it's an unnumbered A zone. When we asked a particular question on a particular lot, about 6 houses up on Seaview Terrace, they were able to tell us what they thought the flood elevation would be within 1/10 of a foot, so it's pretty accurate from their view. And so what we would be using Ransom to do is determine whether or not their base research warranted these areas to be in a flood zone. And again, this is initial research to give you that data. If the data then, the data just is information. And if you then pursue a LOMAR may actually cost $10,000 plus to try and do.
So I'll make it in the form of a motion that we
He doesn't care.
do the initial survey, the initial research.
I'll second.
Discussion? What do you anticipate that would cost?
$2,500. And I would anticipate taking that out of the planning, the one we've been using for the future land use plan and others to
Look
do
at
the
Mary.
work. If the
She
council
knows
would like
this
to
is
go there.
corrupt as hell.
For the comprehensive planning?
Yes.
Will come from that capital project.
So 23,000 left in that, so
No, you do.
there's not enough to do the 10. I mean, that's a different issue, but we won't know that until the data comes in on the initial assessment.
So with an idea, the price tag would be about $2,500 and funds to come from the capital reserve to update the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
Okay. John?
I was wondering, can there be a downside to doing such an analysis so that the analysis or LOMAR decides, the flooding level is actually higher and therefore will impact people more as a
One of the
result of
things
this
that-
research?
Thank you for the question. One of the things that we are to do under the terms, if we do research, we are to share that with the state floodplain office.
And
It does not necessarily mean that they would increase it, because whether or not they would take the data on, they may have contest the, that's one thing you'd find out as well when you submitted the LOMAR, whether or not they'd contest your research that was done. But it's the methods that they're using to ransom are ones that they've used in other municipalities to examine whether or not the flood data is accurate or inaccurate.
And I was also wondering if this, at least this level of research from public done entirely from public access as opposed to going on to people's private property.
Yes. There will be no site visits.
Right.
So what's my motivation? Why do I doubt it? You've seen the revisions. People who had very serious problems dealing with, floodplain issues, who spent many, many thousands of dollars, suddenly in this latest revision, oh, hey, you don't have a problem. Oh, that's great. Nice, great news.
Because it's the city flooding you.
The people who are going to be affected by this, in particular up in this area, are going to have very highly increasing flood insurance, and I think it's worth just, at least making this initial review before we accept, we're accepting it, but we're looking to just review it, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any more discussion? Take it to vote, all in favor? So vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
They're secretive. They're just so secretive. You heard City Manager Drew Slocum say to update the comprehensive plan. So this plan is bad news, and no one in the public can read it. It's in a binder. Anyway. All right, bye.